Hello again, Internet. Not drinking tonight, not boozing tonight. Not a huge fan of the brand. The title below will tell you what we're talking about tonight. Just a quick recap of where I've been here. Why I haven't been uploading videos is life in general. I haven't been really pissed off. I haven't really been enthused about it. I got kind of distracted by life, you know, the universe and everything. And that's pretty much it. I kind of got self-conscious about it because towards the end of my last video, one of my friends in my gaming group found the videos, and he is an actor by enthusiasm. He's hoping to be an actor by trade, but right now it's by enthusiasm, which is still good. I'm a writer by enthusiasm, so I can't really, hurl stones on that. And he has particular pet peeves, and he's not really shy about telling them to me. So now I have someone who will watch my videos, who can come to me at my house and go, you said 72 times that night. So, a little self-conscious, but I don't really fucking care. I say in conversation because my brain's wandering through a forest of topics, and it will just get lost behind a tree for a while, and I have to find it again. You may have noticed I don't focus well in conversations. He thinks I need to work out scripts for these things, but by the time I was done the script, I'd be completely out of interest in doing the topic. So, segueing away, there it is again. You may notice that I'm looking over there a lot more, and the reason is because I'm using a tablet that my wife has rather than my rinky-dink phone, which you couldn't see. And the camera's over here, but I hate watching videos where someone's looking me in the eye, staring at the camera, and not actually looking at anything else in the room. So it bothers me. So I'm looking at the monitor, also partly to make sure I'm not like, or drooling on myself or some shit like that. So if it's distracting that I'm looking at the door to my porch, sorry, I'm not. I'm looking at you as best I can without just... So anyway, what we're talking about today is the idea of cliches and tropes as useful devices and non-useful devices. This is inspired by a project that I was recently involved with that is not going to work because for me to work on something, I either need to be paid. For me to work on something for someone else, I either need to be paid or I need to be passionate. And my options were limited to where I could no longer be passionate, but he's not interested in paying me. But what he wants is a World Bible, Story Bible, and multiple seasons of scripts over the next few years. So no. I mean, just basically no. But it has got me working on my own projects again, and so I'm working on a series of vignettes in a kind of urban fantasy horror-y style, although I realize it's not really the kind of horror I like, so I'm probably going to delve into a couple short stories. Again, I'm trying to find a spot. I think I'm going to do a blogspot site, but I don't know. I really don't want to use Tumblr, so I might end up using Blogspot. If someone has any suggestions for a good place to do a writing blog you can get fucking comments on, or at least a blog you can post things and have people respond and do at least mild critiques on, just down in the comments, that'd be helpful. Everything else, the other thing I might have to do is I might see if I can get someone to read them and just do them as YouTube videos. Who the fuck knows? Not the goddamn topic at hand. The topic at hand is tropes and cliches as useful and unuseful items. Like I was talking about in my last, one of my last videos, I don't know if it was the exact last video, but the video with vampires and werewolves and things like that, and basically saying, like, when you say vampire, you've got a certain concept, a certain idea. I don't know if that's what I said in the video, because it's been a while. I don't rewatch my videos, really. But when you say vampire, you have an idea based on your experience with vampires, and generally speaking, we've all got the same basic concepts. Undead, drinks blood, probably doesn't like sunlight too much for reasons. If you're a big Twilight fan, my condolences. But it's because it makes them shiny and obvious, I guess. If you're a Bram Stoker fan, it's because it removes their powers, and if you're a fan of movies, it's because it fucking incinerates them for the most part. Yeah, that's basically it. Werewolves. Turns into a wolf, probably fucking worried about silver, might have something to do with the moon, and could be a curse, or could be genetic. And if you're a fan of Werewolf the role-playing game, or, again, Twilight, probably all Native Americans are werewolves. Who knew? You'd think the American Indian War would have gone a different way, but maybe the fucking soldiers at Wounded Knee had silver bullets. Anyway, moving on. Then you come to the ideas, like in the project. One of the things in the project, and it's something I'm probably going to talk about in several videos as I go along, things that I think were being done wrong that were really killing my ability to run it. He wants to do love interest as an audience insert character. Audience insert characters are fantastic. They're a great device, especially if you're telling a long-form story, because now you have a character who doesn't know how the universe works around characters who do. So when something needs to be explained, you have a person standing there that people can look at and go, this is why this is happening, or this is what's going on. Similar to the companions for the Doctor, Gwen Cooper from Torchwood. I watch a lot of BBC shows, I guess. But characters like that, characters who are there to essentially have but they tend to be a perspective character as well. They tend to be the main character to an extent. Well, he wanted them introduced in the second season. So you've already established your universe, and now you're going to introduce the character that you're going to explain everything to. And then he wanted her to die in like the fourth season in order to rally the hero again against the demons he's been hunting this entire goddamn time. Basic problems with that, basic ideas with that. I have issues with that. And again, it's general enough that you've heard the story. You know, maybe not season counts, but you've heard this story. It's called being fridged in the comic books. Gail Simone, I think, coined that phrase, but I know she made the phrase famous with her website, that her blog that got her into comic book writing. And basically, it's introducing a female character for the sole purpose of dying, so that they can give the hero a no moment, and they can go off and beat the bad guy up a bit more. It can be useful. It can be. It can be useful to set up the expectation and then subvert it, either through having a different character die, through having the hero, the person who's been established to be the hero and the badass, die, and have the love interest take up the mantle, or build up to it and don't have it happen. Have something happen that no one goddamn dies. As long as you do it well, it can be done well. Even fridging can be done well. But you have to build to it. You have to have a good emotional impetus, so the character can't feel like they only exist for this. I'm hoping I'm making sense, but basically the character, whatever end goal you have for the character, they can't feel like they exist just for that goal. I mean, yeah, if you're writing a true horror story, a pure horror story, and a character dies, if they didn't see the character die coming, I mean, good job. Fucking, you're writing an actual horror story meant to frighten people and they don't see a death coming. But if they do, it's not really a, thing. That's one of the problems with getting people into a horror story. A lot of times they'll expect someone to die, or everyone to die, or all the things to die. But yeah, the idea of a trope, the idea of a cliche, the idea of things like that are meant to evoke your memory. They're meant to basically bring up your knowledge of this kind of thing. When you hear a princess has been kidnapped, you have an idea of where the story's going from here. That's incredibly useful if you want to tell a very simple story without having to add too many details and just fill in the blanks as you go, like a Mad Libs. It's also very useful if you want to subvert the shit out of it and make it interesting. You can give them the idea that it's going to be a basic, straightforward story, and if they follow you down the thread, you might be able to actually change it up and surprise them. It's the same with fantasy stories. It's the same with goddamn dwarves and elves. It's why they're so endemic. Dragons, it's why it's so endemic. Because I can say dragon, and I'm willing to bet you're picturing a scaly creature that can breathe fire, likely has wings, and more than likely has 4 legs, and may or may not be able to talk, and is probably goddamn huge. So if I say a tiny dragon that can fit on someone's shoulder, I don't have to add any other goddamn detail. If I say a tiny pink dragon that can sit in my hat, I don't have to add any other goddamn details because you filled in the rest because you have that knowledge. If I say a dwarf, you probably picture a short, stout person with a beard, probably a Scottish accent thanks to Gimli and WoW, and probably a drinker, probably wields an axe, probably kind of gruff. If I say a giant dwarf that stands like 2 horses tall in a fantasy story, you can get the idea that it's basically a dwarf proportioned up to being 2 horses tall, whatever the fuck that means. It's a measure I used to use in high school when I write fantasy stuff, but I still don't fucking really know what that means. You count the shoulder of it. Anyway, forest of ideas. Can't find my way. They're very useful to hold place of an idea. If I say an elf, you picture a wispy, willowy, maybe taller, maybe shorter than a person, depending on your background, D&D or Tolkien. Probably longish hair, probably fair-skinned, blonde. And so if I say a dark-skinned elf, not a dark elf, but a dark-skinned elf, I can change your thing. If I say a dark-haired elf, I can change your view without having to say angular features, aquiline nose, almond-shaped eyes. I don't have to go through the entire description because you've got it in your head. It's very useful. The problem is it's also very stifling. It's the difference between doing a science fiction story and a modern day story. If I say I'm setting it in 2015 Seattle, all I really have to do is describe the things that you don't know about modern day Seattle. Like, I don't really have to describe the Space Needle. I can just say the Space Needle. I have to say that fucking, Mentos on 3 toothpicks in the middle of the goddamn fucking harbor surrounded by that giant fucking vomited up metal building that's supposed to be artistic. I can just say the Space Needle. You either know what I'm talking about, or you can quickly Google it, or you can at least picture in your head because you've probably seen it in a movie. Same as I can say Empire State Building. Same as I can kind of, for some people, say Transamerica Building. You get my point for different cities. But if I set it in, say, Fantasy World du jour number 3, and say a giant castle, now you picture a big squat, probably picture a big squat brick building surrounded by walls. So it's going to take a lot to change that if I'm picturing a crystal castle with spinnerets and minarets. It's shooting webs everywhere. Again, completely different concept than what you were probably picturing. Castle that's just shitting webs everywhere. It's just fucking amazing. But that said, it's dumb to rely on them completely, but it's also dumb to throw them out inherently. But you need to be aware when you're using them. One, because it's a shorthand, which means you can skip the descriptions. That's really goddamn useful. If I say a vampire, I don't really have to go an undead vampire. It's an undead bloodsucker. I just said vampire. You've got that. You've got bloodsucker. Now, if I say it sucks out souls, that's when I need to explain myself, and I probably should explain myself through the exposition of characters in natural dialogue, and that's an important thing if you're interested in writing or reading or making horror or anything. Natural dialogue during exposition. Don't just vampire appears and have him just turn it. That's a vampire. It's a bloodsucker. They usually live to be about 400 or 500 years old if they're not staked. Stakes kill them, crosses don't affect, blah, 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 blah. It's better to have a character try things and do things. It's my main problem I've been talking about with friends about the shows like The Walking Dead and zombie media that refuse to use the word zombie or acknowledge that zombies exist in popular media in an attempt, I guess, to seem hip and edgy. I honestly would really prefer zombies behave slightly differently than traditional zombies, but have a character who thinks they don't. Have that one guy they meet who loved zombie movies, who he thinks they have all the answers, and the zombies aren't working that way. These ones are fast, or these ones are slower, or these ones don't eat anything but the brains, or these ones eat everything but the brains, or these ones don't eat anything, they're just spreading an infection. But whatever it is, have the character have to actually confront that and explain out loud why that is. You can absolutely have the characters who refusing to say the Z word because it terrifies them. And Walker just becomes, or whatever the fuck term you want to use, just becomes the basic term that these characters use. But you lampshade the shit, goddammit. You know, if you want to have vampires in your story, but they're not burned by sunlight, the characters in the story who can name what a vampire is should be able to go, why aren't you burned in sunlight? If you've got werewolves in your story and they're actually a Native American tribe who just decided to not defend their people from the encroachment of manifest destiny, you should be able to say, I thought it was a curse. Simple as that. I thought, or hey, where the fuck were you at the Trail of Tears? Where the fuck were you at all these events? Why weren't you helping? Just something to lampshade if you're going to make a big deal about something in a story. I think I'm rambling now. I'm hitting a few extra uhs. See, again, again. He pointed out, so now I'm hearing it every goddamn time, but I do it in conversation, so But that's basic gist of it. I don't want to ramble too long because I've pretty much reached the meat of what I'm talking about. I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but that's the basic idea, is that if you're going to use, I'm repeating myself, which is another thing he hates, but repetition also helps memory. If you're going to use existent concepts, you need to explain them, but only in the way that they're different from what people would expect them to be. If you're going to say demons, people are going to assume Christianity. So if they're not Christian, you need to explain them. You don't necessarily need to make a new name for them. You just need to have a character who's in the know, at some point, explain what's different. If you're going to have angels, but they're not Christian, again, you're going to have to explain at some point that they're not angels in the Christian concept. It's as simple as that. But the main thing is you have to be aware of the tropes you're using, and you have to use them to their best effect. Not simply throw them in because it's an easy thing to do. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that makes sense. I'm going to go before I ramble any further. You kids have fun. Later.